If you or your partner are considering ending the relationship, look, I don't blame you. They've hurt you over years, you're sick and tired of it, and it seems like every argument, they just try to prove you wrong. So you hop on YouTube to search for answers, and you hear somewhere that they actually might be a narcissist.
Narcissistic Personality Disorder, also known as NPD.
There are those that believe that you're not going to change a narcissist no matter what you do.
Every time I create a video or talk about narcissism, I always have people in the comments asking, wait, maybe I'm a narcissist.
You start thinking to yourself, you know, my partner, they're selfish. They love bombed me in the beginning and they always want attention and they lack empathy. Oh my freaking gosh, this explains everything. Eureka, I'm dating a narcissist. Now, for most people, that insight just sealed the fate of your relationship. If you don't rethink what these experts actually have wrong, you look back on these moments years later with intense regret. However, if you understand the 3 thinking flaws I'm gonna show you in this video, and you can see your partner's behavior in the correct way to not only get them to stop being narcissistic, but instead become more loving, listen more, and learn to appreciate you fully, to get back what you once had. Now, this video is for you if someone's called you a narcissist in your relationship, or you think they're a narcissist, to rethink things to have a more effective relationship. So let's jump in. Now look, the reason why I know so much about this is because I'm a licensed therapist, and for the past 8, almost 9 years at this point, I've worked with hundreds of couples in saving their relationship. And one of the things that pisses me off more than anything else is people read a few, things online and they think, oh my gosh, my partner is this thing, right? But really that creates a negative self-fulfilling prophecy that actually, it takes away the responsibility in your part in this. And therefore, the reason why this is for you, why it's so important, why I care that you need to hear this video is because in the next relationship, the same thing's gonna occur. And then you're gonna think to yourself, well, I just attract narcissists, but that's not true. Look, I understand the process of wanting to seek explanation from the pain that you're experiencing and how to, use that information to guide yourself in future interactions to avoid it from happening again, to protect yourself. But for the next few minutes, just hear me out with these 3 thinking flaws that if you shift them, you'll get whole new different results, even with the partner that you're with. Now, the first thinking flaw that you're going through is the illusory superiority bias. This bias refers to the tendency to overestimate our own abilities and knowledge relative to others. When it comes to your relationship in this diagnosis process, you think that you have a better understanding of what's going on than they do. For example, if your partner hasn't been meeting your needs, it's so easy just to say, well, they're just being selfish, and they're being selfish because they're a narcissist, rather than looking at all the complex variables that are taking place in the context of the situation. It's easy just to strap on a label and to stereotype and to generalize because your brain works that way. It's the way our brains actually work. But oftentimes these multi-variable complex things deserve more forethought and insight. There are so many factors that can lead to this bias, but let me share with you a study to show you how prevalent this bias actually is in society. One study, for example, took a bunch of college professors and asked them to rate themselves in their capabilities and their ability as a professor. And over 94% of the college professors rated themselves as better than average, which is just not possible. This doesn't just apply to professors. On average, in other studies, we consider ourselves better drivers, more intelligent, more trustworthy, more charismatic than we actually are. You'll actually find that only 1 in 200 people, or 0.05% of the population, actually have NPD. So the way this plays out with you and your partner in this scenario is that you think that their behavior, they're the bad one and you're the good one because you can only see things from your perspective. And I know what you're probably saying right now, even though I just showed you that 1 in 200 people are actually narcissistic, you're probably saying this, but Josh, they're the 1 in 200. Trust me, you don't know my partner. If you sat down with them for an hour and you heard the things they did to me, you would realize that they are 1 in the 200. And I hear that from everyone, so it's just not statistically possible. So the second thinking flaw that will contribute to your incorrect diagnosis or their incorrect diagnosis of narcissism is the fundamental attribution error. This bias refers to the tendency to attribute the behavior of others to their personality or character rather than situational factors. So when it comes to the situation of diagnosing your partner in the relationship as a narcissist, it's easy to say that those behaviors are because it's who they are as a person, as opposed to the environment, the situation is causing those behaviors to arise. As an example, in the Vietnam War, over 95% of the soldiers were using amphetamines and barbiturates and all these opium and all this stuff, that there was a huge fear by the US government that when all these soldiers come back into the States, there's gonna be a huge drug problem, like millions, right? But what they found was by switching the environment where they weren't in this witnessing death day by day, watching their friends die, they wouldn't need to numb themselves because they switched environments. And the situation right now with you and your partner, when things are falling apart, you're both in protection mode. You only care about yourself, and so you're putting these blinders on because you're only thinking about taking care of you and your needs because you think they can't meet your needs anymore. Therefore, what happens is that because of the situation, they're acting narcissistic, they're acting selfish to protect themselves, not because that's actually who they are as a person. Do you see what I mean? For example, let me tell you exactly what happened with one of my clients who came into my marriage mastery program the other day in our conversation. Well, I just think she's a narcissist. Okay, how do you know? well, in the beginning of the relationship, she love bombed me. You know, she was all over me, she wanted me. And now she's being selfish and just super cold. Okay, how about instead, in the beginning, instead of love bombing you, she was actually in limerence, or the honeymoon phase that 100% of people go through when they first fall in love. And now her being cold is actually her protecting herself because she can't rely on you after the history of your relationship. So instead of seeing it as narcissistic, it's actually a common process to go from in love, that's her real self, to now she's putting up walls instead of her actually being the narcissistic person you think she is. So when your partner is being selfish, they're not thinking about how their actions are affecting you, it's because they're not thinking. They're not doing it intentionally. The third thinking flaw when it comes to narcissism and its overdiagnosis is the personalization bias. This bias refers to the tendency to assume that the behavior of the others is directed at us personally, even when there may be other explanations for their behavior. When it comes to diagnosing our partner as a narcissist, we may assume that their behavior is directed at us specifically rather than considering other possible reasons for their actions. I can explain this one really clearly with two different realities. Let me actually go to the graph. All right, so this is the reality distortion matrix, and this is one of the first things I would show you if we were working together. So now the first thing I tell my clients is everything that happens outside of your mind is considered stimulus. Anything that happens, sounds, sights, all the senses you take up is a stimulus. So the example I give with a lot of the husbands I work with was, wife asked for a divorce, and a lot of guys will see that this is a selfish move. She's not thinking of the kids and this and that, right? Now, the first belief is that she has NPD, right? She has Narcissistic Personality Disorder. This is why she's asking for a divorce. This is because she's selfish and all this stuff, right? I tell them, okay, if that was your belief, how would you feel? The first thing that happens to us when we perceive something in reality is that we have an emotion about it before any thoughts, before any actions. Emotions come first because it's our old software. It's that automatic processing, the subconscious brain, right? The fast mind. So most often, if a guy was like, okay, she has NPD, that's why she's asking for divorce, she would be angry. That's often the first emotion. So I was like, okay, cool. If you're angry, what do you often think? Screw her, right? That's what a lot of guys can think oftentimes. It's like, screw my wife, she's being an a-hole, or whatever the hell, right? So then I say, if you have those thoughts of screw her, how do you act around her? Most often, the guy is closed off, right? He's closed off, he's being emotionally rude, he's shutting down, he's argumentative, all the like. I said, okay, if you have those actions with your wife, how does she respond? What's the result? Well, she becomes more selfish. So it's a self-perpetuating cycle. I say, cool, so we are well aware of this thing occurring. What if we had a different belief, okay? What if our belief, instead of her having narcissistic personality disorder, what if, based off the things I've told you so far, in this situation, she's scared, she's hurt, she doesn't know what to do, she's panicking, she's reverting back to her, protection mode as a child, her attachment wounds, all these things, she's in pain. What if that was your belief? How would you feel? Most often guys say they would feel more concerned. So if your emotion's concerned, what would you be thinking? I want to help, right? Okay, what would you do? They'd be more empathetic, they'd be more open, they'd be more compassionate. I said, if you were unreactive and compassionate, empathetic, would you see a different result from her? And the answer is, of course. Right? So this is the whole idea that narcissistic personality disorder is a new diagnosis, and it helps understand how to not be taken advantage of by a lot of people. But at the same time, this overdiagnosis, and if you see people through that lens, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's what I want you to see, that this is in your power. When it comes down to it, one of the hardest pills to swallow when you're going through something traumatic as this, as a separation of your relationship with the one you love, is that you have more responsibility in their actions than you may realize. That you are the creator of your own reality. And oftentimes what happens is that when we are getting hurt, when people are doing things against us, it's so easy to just assume that it's a character flaw in themselves, that if they could only see things my way, it's because of these problems, it's their trauma, it's their this, it's their that. You're taking all the power away from yourself by doing this. I know it feels good in the moment, it feels better to victimize yourself and to villainize your partner, but I'm telling you, in the long run, after doing this for so many years, you are doing yourself a big disservice, and taking this victim mentality is gonna carry over into the next relationship. Even if you think in the beginning that person's gonna be great again, in the limerence phase, like, oh my God, this person's so different, those same issues that you have with your partner now are gonna come up. I know for a fact. And if you don't wanna go through the same pain, I am trying to warn you, out of years of experience from doing this, you have to see things differently, okay? And when you see things differently, the world differently, the way you interact, your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, everything changes. And because I showed you in that reality distortion matrix, you get new results, okay? I'd watch this video right here on trust, which is a big component of narcissists playing out in your relationship and those behaviors. Other than that, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.